What is up, beautiful people? This is Christian from the Successful Spiritualpreneur podcast, and today I'm super excited because we have on the show Grace Emmons. She is a wonderful healer, teacher, and guide to influential leaders from Silicon Beach to Malibu to Hollywood. She's been a wonderful light in this world, and Grace Emmons' approach really is as cutting edge as it is rooted in timeless wisdom. She's the founder of Forward with Grace, and she has trained across positive and depth psychology, behavioral science, spiral dynamics, Reiki, and energetics, and incorporates a rich tapestry of spiritual and esoteric teaching encompassing Kabbalah, natal astrology, and metaphysics. Grace's deep mastery of diverse disciplines uniquely positions her as a bridge between science and spirituality. Welcome to the show, Grace.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yay, such an honor. So I'm really, really curious of how you got into this work of like connecting, the intangible with the tangible and the science with the spirituality, which is, I think, this exactly what this podcast is about this intersection between spirituality and entrepreneurship and bringing together these worlds and bridging those as we as humans represent that at our core, because we are that embodiment of the intangible and the tangible in this planet. So yeah, tell us a little bit about how you got into this wondrous journey of being who you are.
For sure. So, I definitely have, I guess, a unique background uh, as somebody who's now a healer, a coach, a guide. I started out, I had my undergrad degree from USC was in biomedical engineering. I was so fascinated by human health and the body and the natural intelligence that we have within us fascinated me. And so I thought I wanted to help people and help people be well. And so at first I thought maybe I would be a doctor or maybe I would go into making medicines. And I learned a lot about physical health through that time in my life at school and then moving into the pharma and biotech world. But the most interesting thing happened when I was, as I spent time working in pharma and biotech, I started working at a company that was um, really cutting edge, helping to improve patient outcomes. And we found out that the mind was really just as important or more important in the health and the outcomes of the patient, their beliefs about their treatment, their beliefs about what was possible for themselves were really, really factoring into outcomes. So that was a big light bulb for me, that I started being more and more interested in this mind over body, mind over matter, mind body connection. And then it was in my master's in clinical psychology with an emphasis in spirituality, mind, and body, where I really gained all of the evidence and sort of proved what my suspicions were, that actually it's the spiritual that is really the foundation to all well-being. We have, the spiritual side of ourselves, the essence of ourselves that is spiritual, that then filters down through the mental and emotional body and then down into the physical body. And there actually is quite a bit of evidence supporting that. So I sort of learned through these different times and stages of my career and my schooling how much the mind, the body, the spirit are all really interconnected, and with the root being in our soul, our spiritual core. But my transition into spirituality and entrepreneurship was actually much more personal. I found Reiki and energetic healing when I was at a really low point in my life. I was at a rock bottom point. I was just totally burnt out in my career. I was in a really toxic personal relationship that I was having trouble walking away from. I was addicted to Adderall. I was, just to try to get through my days in my job that was sucking my soul. And I started to develop really bad anxiety, depression, which I had never had in my life. I had never been an anxious person. So to feel that feeling, it was just so concerning and like, oh my gosh, I don't want to feel this way. What is going on? And all of that was piling on. And I eventually developed this chronic shoulder pain that no doctor could explain. I went to every single, chiropractor, physical therapist, orthopedic surgeon, everyone, and they said, "Oh, it must be in your head, or it's like, something, we can't find out what's wrong." And so I went to see a Reiki practitioner, a friend who was doing Reiki, and I thought I was going for my shoulder pain. And I said, "Oh, maybe this could help me. Nothing else has been able to help me." And the most amazing thing happened in the course of a couple of sessions. I really reawoke the essence of myself. I mean, when we talk about a spiritual awakening, it was that. Like, it felt like I woke up from a dream and I remembered who I was and what it felt like to feel good again, what it felt like to feel like me again. And just like, oh my gosh, what have I been doing? It was like I'd been sleepwalking up until that point. And I couldn't remember the last time that I'd felt so alive and good and present and joyful, and like, it reconnected me to everything that I was missing. And then it became very clear that my issue wasn't the physical pain or, anxiety or depression. They were really symptoms of being cut off from my spiritual self. And that was really the trigger that pushed me into, I knew in that moment, I knew after my first or second Reiki session, I said, someday I'm going to be a Reiki master and I'm going to help people. And that set me off on this path of learning everything there was to learn about energy healing and many of these spiritual and esoteric teachings. That was actually what triggered me going to get that master's degree, because I wanted to be able to put the context. I had experienced such a powerful transformation myself, and I wanted to be able to explain this and bring this to the masses in a way that they could understand. So the master's degree was a way of really trying to put into context what I had experienced myself. And now I'm able to bring that and help my clients that are going through those same rock bottom moments, and hopefully help to turn them into huge moments of transformation and growth and awakening.
Wow. That's fascinating. And I think when you look at life, it's always funny how it urges you, or, well, it doesn't really urge you. It invites you to live from the inside out, but often we ignore it, right? And then something happens from the outside in that is a symbol for this intangible, like a pain that nobody can explain, or an accident that just happens out of nowhere, that really gives us the invitation to really tune in, you know.
Yeah, unfortunately, most of us are waiting for something to go wrong. Like, we have to really, it's so the way that we understand this energetically is that everything starts in that spiritual energetic realm, and then it manifests through these levels. So it's if you don't get the signal, if you're not tuned in and getting quiet with yourself and listening to your spirit, your soul, it'll manifest as a problem, an issue in the mental realm, and then the emotional realm, and then finally the physical realm. And so many of us are so out of touch, so disconnected, that we're waiting till that physical illness or injury, like you said, or something very, very tangible to happen before we realize how out of alignment we are with our true essence and the path we're meant to be on.
Yeah.
So what we hope is that we can catch it earlier on, and that people can read these signals and notice when they're getting out of alignment. But for so many of us, we're waiting until it's really necessary, due to some sort of issue. Yeah.
Well, because we've been trained to just see what's in 3D, which is in the physical, what's in front of our eyes. And the funny thing is, like, what we actually see, we kind of like, we actually see the past, right? Like, I'm sitting here with you right now, we're having a podcast, and I'm seeing the past because all these thoughts and actions that I've taken, weeks and years ago, have now led up to this moment for me to sit here and be here now. And really, when an accident or an injury happens, then, like, it's just doesn't come from anywhere, you know. But
Yeah.
again, it's exactly what you said, is that people are out of alignment and not in tune with what is going on, so that it has to manifest like that sometimes.
And one of the huge trends that we're seeing, I mean, the population at large right now is struggling with anxiety and depression at levels that we never have before. I think it's 40% of the population at any given time is experiencing anxiety, and close to that same level for depression. And the interesting thing about that is, like, we like to then conceptualize this as that's a disorder and that's something to be treated, and that's, this sort of like mental health crisis. But Dr. Lisa Miller, who's a pioneer in the space of the intersection of spirituality and psychology, she found that actually people that have a strong spiritual core, some sort of sense of a spiritual practice or connection spiritually, are actually protected by 80% of developing anxiety and depression. So the way that she sort of framed this and what her research is around, that's very compelling, is, okay, what if anxiety and depression, they're not these disorders on their own? What if they're actually a lack of that spiritual connection? What if they're actually a symptom of being cut off from our spiritual life and self, and how we're sort of meant to be? We evolved as spiritual beings through history. We used to live in these tribal communities that were so connected, interwoven. It was like you were one with the tribe. And then for a long time, spirituality lived in the context of organized religion, and people were connecting spiritually through, their church or their synagogue or what have you. And really all of that has fallen away. And we're now living in this isolated society where people aren't taught how to commune with themselves and commune with a larger sense of connection. We can define spirituality as the connection with our innermost, truest self, and the connection with something greater than ourselves. And that, is non-denominational. It's not religious, although it can be religious. There's a lot of different sort of flavors of how one can be spiritual, but nothing in our current society is actually helping people to learn how to cultivate that spiritual self. And so I believe that that's really the root cause of the mental health crises that we're experiencing today.
Yeah, I agree. So, since you've studied so many different modalities and various techniques and teachers, and I think you're very well just embodied being of studying spirituality. So, I would love for you to just give us a brief, I don't know, synopsis of like what do they have all in common, or what are things that's like, it doesn't really matter what you study because it's all the same at the end anyways, kind of thing. So is
Mm.
there anything you have to share in terms of wisdom nuggets from like this is kind of like the same thing but they just say it?
Oh, absolutely. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. It's really at the root of all of it. It's about, each of us come into this life whole and perfect and with our own unique gifts and strengths. And, whether you study astrology or Kabbalah or human design, it's all about, we actually come into the world perfect and whole. And we have this blueprint within us also of what we are sort of meant to be in this life, or what way of living and what way of working and what we could do that would really fulfill us. And that's what I call the soul blueprint, or like your true essence. And really it's all about chasing your joy and what lights you up. And that's the easiest, if you want to know, without even studying any of these different modalities, if you want to know what you're meant to do, where you're meant to be, you follow what lights you up and what you're passionate about and what brings you joy, what fulfills you. That is how to navigate and find your highest path, is really just following those pings. When I work with clients, oftentimes what I'm helping them do is sort of turn down the external noise and turn up the volume on their inner guidance, because we all have that within. We just don't learn how to cultivate it, right? We can talk more about intuition. And then, what I would say about connection to something greater than self, I mean, really at the root of any esoteric teaching, any religion, any spiritual teaching, it's love. It's unconditional love and being in a state of love for oneself and for those around us, for our planet. People say God is love. People say, to heal, it's sort of we can heal through love. I would say that would be another theme that is really just. Sometimes I sound like a hippie or something, but it's like really just at the end of the day, it's about just being a human. Is just about as much as possible being in the state and frequency of love.
Yeah. What was that song? All You Need Is Love? Yeah. Those were some wise musicians. Beautiful. Yeah. So we have many listeners in the audience who just wonder how they can be what you are, right? The entrepreneur, the spiritual, the mind body balance alignment. You kind of like found your spot. Like how can we help people in the audience find their ikigai or their spot?
Yeah. I think it's a journey. It always starts with getting quiet and creating space for yourself. But so many people are not even creating the space to dream, to contemplate, like, what would their ideal life be? What would it look like to be um, thriving and doing something they loved and living their life to the fullest? Like, what would that even look like? So many people don't even take that time to dream, to imagine, to journal, to contemplate. So we start there. Um, I always like to say your dreams are your dreams for a reason. We're given these visions of what we can be in this life, and you're never given these ideas of, like people that are like, oh, I could just see myself. I had a conversation with a friend recently, and she said, I just have always had this vision of I have this practice, and I'm like a therapist, and I'm seeing people, and I have this office that's by the ocean, and I can see the ocean, and I have my clients come in and see me. And I was like, well, girl, we already know you have to do that. Like, you don't get such a clear, specific vision if not for a reason. Those are given to us by God, by our higher self, by, whatever it is you believe in, as clues, right? Like something for the breadcrumbs we can follow towards that life that we're meant for. Um, and then certainly developing your intuition, your trust in yourself, certainly self-discovery and self-mastery, learning about yourself. This there was such an overlap between what I learned in the spiritual side and what they teach in positive psychology, that humans are the happiest, the most successful, the most fulfilled when they use their inherent strengths. This is the basis of positive psychology. And that's also what we learn spiritually. It's like we have these gifts within us, and can you, like, learn what those are, mine, kind of unwrap these gifts and figure out how to share them with the world. That's really key to any thriving life and business. And then I think, of course, last, you have to be willing to take the action, to take steps to, we can learn all day and think all day and operate just in the mental realm, but you have to also then take that and put it into physical action. Entrepreneurship certainly requires a lot of action, a lot of doing. And I would say for people at any stage along that journey, I definitely do highly recommend working with a coach, somebody that can create a container in which you're moving through. I mean, this is what I do with my clients, but I don't mean you have to work with me. I just mean find anybody that you resonate with, somebody that is living, a life that you respect, and that, you can see they demonstrate and embody the values that you might care about, whether that's balance between life and business, whether they, are working in an area that you're interested in. But there's so much power in having somebody hold space for you as you move through that process of discovering your highest path and beginning to carve it, and they can support you along the way. I do definitely believe in that.
Beautiful. So to summarize, it's self-discovery, tuning into yourself, taking action or doing some visioning on that, what that could look like, and then actually taking the action, because action is the language of physical reality, and sharing your gifts with the world and getting help.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great. Thank you for summarizing. I'm sometimes long-winded in my answers.
And getting help is optional, but you can do everything yourself. You're the
Yeah.
divine creator.
And
And
there's and there's even simple things like, kind of programs, like group programs you can join or a master class or something. But sometimes it does help to have some sort of format, some sort of methodology that you can kind of follow, because I think it can be a little overwhelming, especially in entrepreneurship. I mean, of course you're creating your own business. I mean, I'm more than anyone, like people will ask me, like who's a role model you have, or who are businesses that you respect, or a business that you're similar to. It's so hard for me to answer that question, because I'm like, what do you mean? I'm creating something that doesn't exist. I'm creating my highest gift to the world and my highest purpose. And how could that be aligned to like anything else that's already in existence? But that doesn't mean that I can't have help to navigate that, to carve my own path. I could still, somebody else sort of lighting the way with a flashlight, like in front of me. It's like not that they have the same path that I'm following. No, no, no. They have their own path. But having somebody to sort of um, witness you as you carve your own can be very powerful.
yeah, absolutely. And also just having that support, and oftentimes comes with community, or even if it's just one person, that's fantastic too.
Yeah.
And so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about your, like, when it comes to, because there's also a lot of people in the audience that already know kind of like what their purpose is. They know which direction they want to go, but they kind of haven't shared it yet with the world. So one essential part is sharing you with the world. Oftentimes is people's social media and website, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how has your website or branding journey, any upgrades or redesigns impacted your business? And like, was it linked to any personal business milestones? Like, how was that for you? Like, how many years did it take you to get a website at all, or did you create it yourself? How
Yeah.
was that? Because that too is always a journey.
Yes, definitely. And I would say about that journey, it's sort of like start where you can, just get started and don't let things, sometimes it can, we are, or at least for me, I want things to be so perfect and so beautiful that I won't do it at all if I don't feel like I can do it at the level that I want to. And something that I've had to learn and kind of shift my mindset around in entrepreneurship is like, just start where you can, get moving, like no excuses, and it can be stepwise, right? So the first iteration of my first business was, like almost this total experimentation. I was actually starting it on the side while I had my consulting job in pharma and biotech. I had also started my master's degree. I was doing a lot of different things, and I wanted to start seeing people as a healer. So I started a little Instagram page and, started. I had a little help from my sister who was in marketing, and she was like, "This is what you got to do," and I started putting content out there and just using it as an avenue really to even explore what I wanted my brand voice to be, or what I wanted to be saying to the world, and and so I just did what I could, and I started with a Wix website, which is something that is very easy to use, very user friendly, very inexpensive. You can create yourself. And that has very cool plugins also for somebody who's in like a healing or coaching profession. They have, you can have people book sessions through there directly. They have a lot of widgets built in. So that was the kind of the first iteration of that business. And after a couple years, it was probably 2 to 3 years, and I had really shifted into doing this work full time. And it felt like I had just outgrown that. Like that was a limited version of my business. And I mean, things had naturally, like I'd already sort of expanded beyond. I was doing a lot of work with companies, corporate work, which was something that took on a life of its own. It was a place I didn't have to invest a lot of time and energy. And I was just like, that part of my business was growing and growing and growing because I had so much experience in corporate, and I brought this evidence-based way of talking about things like Reiki and energetic work that companies responded very well to. I made it something practical that we could kind of bring into them. And then that led to working with companies on heart-centered leadership development and team building and things that were very far outside of the realm of just Reiki and energy healing. So my business became like, oh, it doesn't really fit with this initial brand. So I did a rebrand a couple years ago that involved, totally starting fresh and clean slate, whiteboarding what I wanted my business to be in its next iteration, and sort of, created a whole new website. And that was the birth of Forward with Grace, which is a much bigger mission. I use energy healing in all of the offerings that I have, but the offerings themselves aren't just energy healing, right? It's corporate packages helping leaders to thrive and grow and embody the heart-centered leader. It's couples and group work that uses energy healing, but might be more around the intention of connecting a couple, intimacy, and we use energy healing it, but it's bigger than just that. And with individuals, really shifting into these transformative containers, again, where I use energy healing, but we're also coaching and bringing in these other elements to help them develop and grow. So with that came the new website, an Instagram refresh, and just kind of the biggest shift there too was also leaning more into showing myself and my face and sharing my story, which was something that I was very afraid to do at the outset. I used to sort of hide behind the Instagram squares of like text or photos of, not really of me. And in this latest iteration, it was a big growth opportunity for me to let myself be seen. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's such a wonderful description of how, even the website itself is such a reflection of our own personal evolution,
Yeah.
So that's really beautiful. And just, again, for anyone who's listening, it's just an inspiration of just get going. It doesn't have to be perfect, because we all think, yes, it's online, it has to be perfect. Of course, it has to look good to some extent, but don't make it like too restrictive for yourself to get started with.
Right. If it's preventing you, if you want it to be perfect, great. But if it's preventing you from taking action, then it's not the right, it's not right sized to where you are, right? Like if I would have waited because I needed the website that I eventually built, that I did invest a lot of money, a deep chunk of money in, I reinvested from the revenue I'd made the previous year back into the business. But if I would have waited to start until I had the money to make the bigger website, it's like I would have never gotten, I never would have gotten there, because you have to start somewhere. So just never stop yourself from taking action towards what you want.
Yeah, beautiful. So we're getting towards the end of the episode. I would love to ask you a little bit more about your legacy. Like, what are I would say 3 words that you want people to know you for after you leave this physical plane?
Yes, I know you shared that question with me before so that I could think about it, and I'm not sure if I had it aligned on an answer. I think, I guess one is to be seen as a leader. I like to pave my own way and to show others what's possible in following your own heart and your own dreams. And so that would be one, leader. Two, I got to go with something on like a lover, to somebody that brought love into this world, that embodied love with all the people that they touched. Whether that's my family remembering me as a loving mother and partner, or my clients remembering me as somebody that they, that just infused love into their life. That one is really important to me. And I think thirdly, I guess I don't know the word I want to use, like somebody that lived in their truth, or I guess integrity. But somebody, it is just such a huge value of mine to be authentic, I guess, maybe authentic, right, to myself. Um, and that to me is one of the deepest spiritual practices we can have, is just to show up authentically in our essence. Um, so yeah, maybe those three.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are wonderful. And then while you were saying that, I was constantly thinking about your brand name, Forward with Grace, and how it really embodies all of these values, and words, because forward as the leader, you know, and grace you know, has the softness, this loving aspect to it, but also you can't be in grace when you're not authentic. You can't fake
Mm.
grace, So there's a lot of, you're already well on your
Well, I
way.
love that. Thank you. I don't know if I thought of it that exact way, but believe me, there was a lot of time and thought that went into the name, and it for it to fit energetically and to feel good. So I'm happy. That's a good reflection back. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and important always with brand names, is that they're timeless, which
Mm,
yours absolutely is.
thank you. And that was part of my, speaking of the rebrand and everything, even using my name in the title, like, was like, oh yeah, I'm not, just owning my business, and that it is an extension of me. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's a really really great brand. It's beautiful.
thank you.
So what's your vision for the new Earth as an outlook question?
Ah, yes. Well, I mean, we've talked about a lot of it. Like what the work that I do, it's very much all um, the little part that I can do to help catalyze everyone in creating this new earth, because to me I see it as a world in which everyone can follow their dreams, their passions, their purpose, share their gifts with the world. Like that in itself would repair our world, right? We said that I believe that the mental health issues we're facing are really rooted in a lack of purpose and meaning and connection at the spiritual level. So what if we just kind of reeled it back to that, and allowed everybody to really get in touch with what would truly fulfill them in this life, and allow them to follow that. So I think in some ways we're on a brink where we're maybe closer than ever to making that shift, because something's got to give. Like people are, um, I think across the country, we're in a bit of a rock bottom. So I hope that we're going to kind of, it's going to then allow for that big change and transformation on the other side. Um, Energetically, we talk about each individual has this natural energetic vibration, and each person's is unique. Like there are no two that are exactly the same, because we're each, like, we have our energetic fingerprint that is only ours. And I think that right now, when people are not living in alignment, not in touch with their purpose and their mission, it's like we're out of tune, right? And so if we could get everybody back in tune, um, maybe this is a kind of lame analogy, but it's like then we get to play in this symphony, this beautiful symphony, this song of the universe, with every individual playing their part, right? So that's sort of my vision, my idea for the new earth. Um, and I'm doing my part to make that happen. Part of the reason why I love to work with leaders, I work with a lot of executives, CEOs, entrepreneurs, people that are leading in their various areas. And what excites me about that is this opportunity for a ripple effect of change as well. Because for every leader who we help, shift back into their natural frequency, we're up leveling their consciousness, and then that has ripple effects to all those that they touch in their businesses, their clients, their employee teams, their families, right? And I think that is how we will really reattune everybody to their natural frequency.
Yeah, there's this quote from, I think it was the book A Course in Miracles, and it says we're all walking each other home.
Beautiful.
And so, yeah, it's beautiful. Everybody plays their part perfectly in their role in the ascension. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, and as the last part of the podcast, I always like to give it over to the guest, and just ask you, what are your future goals as a spiritual entrepreneur, company, or brand? What are you looking to call in? Just a little bit of visioning for yourself, and then yeah, where people can find you.
Lovely. Yeah. So, I mean, uh, what am I looking to call in? Um, I would just say more aligned, soul aligned clients. I just love, love, love when when clients find me who just feels so, I mean, that's really the only clients I take on, that it feels so in resonance of so perfect on both sides to work together. Um, and one thing that I've really enjoyed, so through some of my corporate clients, I've done some speaking engagements, and that's been really powerful and fun. So I guess maybe calling in some more aligned speaking engagements as well. I do some motivational speaking and it's seminars um, and things. So I'll put that out there. And the other thing I didn't even mention, we talked about my business Forward with Grace, which is my spiritual consultancy where I work with individuals, with companies, and couples as well. And I also run another business here in Topanga Canyon, Topanga Canyon Oasis, which is a boutique retreat and gathering space. So we have a couple little homes where we host people on our journeys, and then we have a small outdoor venue space where we host retreats and things. And so that's been really fun this past year. I think there's been so much more integration between my businesses. I have couples that come and stay for a couples retreat, and then I work with them in healing, or I have companies that I work with that come and do a corporate retreat here. So calling in more of those opportunities to really bring both of my businesses together, because always the sum is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So it's really fun to get to see those different pieces
Yeah,
intertwine. Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, those things are already making its way towards you. And when we speak something out, that means there's already something else that has been happening.
Yeah. Oh, and I didn't say, you asked where people can find me. So you can follow me on social media at Forward W Grace. Forward with Grace is Forward W Grace. And through my social, it's very clear. You can book a session, you can apply for coaching, you can inquire about corporate and events. And then also go ahead and check out Topanga Canyon Oasis. That's also on Instagram at Topanga Canyon Oasis. If you are looking for a rejuvenating experience, if you need to recharge, if you need a little bit of a solo or couples retreat or company retreat, go check that out. And we'd love to host you here and see you here in Topanga Canyon.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think that's a perfect little getaway spot, especially, I've lived in LA myself for some time, and the city can get a lot, so having a spot to escape and just be, I think that's wonderful. So thank you for sharing yourself and all of this with us. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have you on, Grace. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure's all mine.